In the vast cosmos of forgotten stories, there exists a clandestine chapter that echoes with the celestial footsteps of the Soviet Union. Brace yourselves, for what many people don't even know is that the Soviet Union stood as the pioneer. The trailblazer, planting its spacecraft on the crimson soil of Mars in the year 1971. The cloak of secrecy shrouding this epical moment has only recently been lifted, thanks to declassified evidence unearthed by NASA. Join us on a journey through the cosmic corridors of time as we explore the clandestine endeavors of the Soviets on the mysterious Red Planet. The clandestine Mars mission, spearheaded by the Soviet Union, unveils a saga of triumphs and hidden truths that have reverberated in the silence of secrecy for decades. What were the Soviets seeking on Mars, and why did they choose to guard their discoveries in the depths of classified archives? The revelations are nothing short of astonishing, casting shadows that have lingered in the annals of history, waiting to be unveiled. So, fasten your seatbelts as Universal Narratives embarks on an epic quest to unearth the secrets of the Soviet odyssey on Mars, a narrative that has remained veiled in cosmic mysteries for far too long. The secret history of the Soviet Union's Mars 3 mission represents a fascinating chapter in space exploration. An epic saga that sheds a mysterious light on the roots of the space race during the Cold War. While the United States was celebrating their moon achievements, in 1971, the Soviet Union took an epical step, landing the first module on the surface of Mars. This triumph paradoxically remained shrouded in secrecy for decades, laying the foundation for an intriguing narrative intertwined with the political, scientific, and technological context of the time, as well as revealing the reason for this prolonged silence. The saga of Soviet Martian missions began long before Mars 3. In 1962, the Mars 1 mission was launched with the ambitious goal of collecting data in interplanetary space between Earth and Mars, fly over the Red Planet, and obtain the first impressions of its surface. However, radio contact was lost due to a failure in the orientation sensors, demonstrating that even initial progress could be accompanied by insurmountable challenges. 1971 saw the launch of Mars 2, a double probe with an orbiter and a landing module. Although the orbiter successfully collected data, the descent module crashed during entry into the Martian atmosphere. Despite these obstacles, Mars 1 and 2 still represented significant advances, even if they did not achieve the hoped-for triumph. The competition between the United States and the Soviet Union in the 20th century was characterized by relentless rivalry in the political, military, and scientific fields. The space race became the symbolic epicenter of this struggle, with both nations striving to demonstrate their technological and scientific superiority. While the United States made their space missions public and media-focused, the Soviet Union followed a more reserved approach. Although the successes and failures of the Venera missions to Venus were shared with the public, the Soviet Martian space program remained shrouded in mystery. It has even been suggested that the Soviet missions to Venus were a distraction, a diversion to hide ambitions on Mars. Few people were aware that the communist nation was secretly exploring Mars. Imagine if Soviet astronauts had planted the red flag in Martian dust. It would have been an unprecedented triumph. However, this triumph was denied to the communists, as Mars 3 and the preceding missions were kept secret. The secrecy of these failed missions was not just a matter of pride, but of national security in an era when every sign of failure was seen as a sensitive weakness. The Soviet Union chose to hide the failure on Mars, also fearing Western spies who might have learned sensitive data. Imagine that a US spy had obtained the measurement data from Soviet probes, and that this data would have given the United States an advantage in sending humans to Mars, a goal announced first by the United States. To this day, more than 45 years later, neither the United States, Russia, nor the Soviet Union have sent humans to Mars. The challenges were larger than imagined. Both nations suffered severe setbacks due to economic and social crises. In the United States, the poor, and especially the African American community, protested against the immense expenditure of the Apollo missions and other space objectives. In the East, the entire state of the Soviet Union collapsed in the early 90s. Today, NASA's overall budget has increased, but it is still small compared to the pioneering days of the 60s and 70s. Russia, too, is making progress on the international space stage, but the successor nation of the Soviet Union has to deal with smaller budgets. The technology behind the Mars missions, like the Venera probes, is now considered a milestone in space exploration. It is admirable how engineers and scientists overcame all the technological challenges, and certainly, the Soviet Union would have succeeded in sending probes to Mars if it hadn't been for the lack of funds and ambition in the Venera project. Probe after probe was launched, and the failures served to make the probes ever better, until Venera 13 finally sent the best and only images of the surface of Venus, the hottest planet in the solar system. The tools of the Mars missions were sophisticated, including cameras to photograph the Martian surface and spectrometers and other sensors to analyze the composition of Martian soil and atmosphere. Overall, the Soviet missions to Mars were impressive examples of technological innovation and engineering skill. The future of Mars exploration in the 2020s is still at the beginning of an exciting journey. The exploration of the red planet has significantly increased in recent decades, and the future promises even greater discoveries with the advancement of technology and renewed interest in interplanetary missions. The prospects are good for soon sending human beings to a planet beyond Earth, largely thanks to billionaire Elon Musk's commitment, which has given new impetus to the now peaceful space race. Currently, 5 nations have rovers and probes on Mars or orbiting around it. The missions of rovers like Curiosity and Perseverance send new details daily. Roscosmos, the successor organization of the Soviet Space Agency, has plans to collaborate with the European Space Agency, ESA, to send the ExoMars orbiter and a rover called Rosalind Franklin to Mars. The goal is to find signs of life on the red planet, but this mission is on hold due to renewed political tensions. Russia's political behavior is isolating it again and could cause it to lose the race to Mars. What many people do not know is that the Soviet Union was the first nation on this planet to lay a spacecraft on Mars in 1971. NASA has just found declassified evidence of this landing, which was kept secret for a long time from the global public. But what were the Soviets doing on Mars, and why did they never talk about their discoveries? The answers to these questions have been surprising and fascinating for decades. The Mars 3 mission was the peak of this daring exploration, a bold attempt to conquer the mysterious red planet. The Mars 3 mission was launched under the Soviet space program with the aim of exploring and studying Mars. This mission included an orbiter and a lander. On December 2, 1971, the Mars 3 lander became the first probe to successfully reach the surface of Mars. An extraordinary achievement that, at first, was kept hidden from the world. The Mars 3 probe, despite its brief activity, provided a series of fundamental data. Among its most significant discoveries, Mars 3 determined that the atmospheric pressure on the surface of Mars was significantly lower than that on Earth. Moreover, the instruments on board the probe recorded a surface temperature of -110 degrees Celsius. This information was crucial to understanding Martian atmospheric conditions. But the real surprise came with the first image ever captured of the surface of Mars. On December 2, 1971, Mars 3 successfully sent a grainy black and white image, revealing the desolate landscape of the red planet. This was a scientific and technological triumph, but the Soviet Union chose to keep this precious information secret. The question naturally arises, why hide such a remarkable success? The answer to this complex question can be traced back to various factors. Firstly, Mars 3 was not without problems. A few seconds after landing, the lander's signal stopped, leaving many questions unanswered. The probe failed to complete the full data collection on Mars due to this failure, and this could have influenced the Soviet decision not to openly share the triumph. Moreover, the Soviet Union had hoped for a more sensational discovery. Imagine if they had published images of remains of settlements on Mars or evidence of bacterial life in the early 70s. This would have been an incredible success and would have overshadowed the US efforts on the Moon. However, the reality was different, and the Soviet Union may have felt that the grainy image and the brief activity of Mars 3 were not enough to compete with the American triumph on the Moon. The secret of Mars 3 was kept for many years, until the end of the Cold War and the collapse of the Soviet Union. In that time of détente between East and West, the truth about the secret mission to Mars emerged. However, this revelation did not bring the limelight that one would have expected. The space race had already lost much of its initial momentum, and collaboration between Russian and American astronauts on the International Space Station became the new symbol of a post-Cold War era. Looking to the future, the exploration of Mars in the 2020s is still at the dawn of a new era. The Red Planet is in the spotlight with numerous ongoing missions and ambitious future projects. Technology has evolved significantly since the Mars 3 mission, with more sophisticated spacecraft, advanced rovers, and more powerful analysis tools. Currently, 5 nations have rovers and probes on Mars or orbiting around it. Rovers like Curiosity and Perseverance are sending valuable data on the geology, soil composition, and Martian atmosphere. Upcoming missions, such as the ExoMars Orbiter and the Rosalind Franklin rover, aim to explore new areas and look for signs of past or present life. However, international collaboration for Mars exploration has been interrupted by recent political tensions. The collaboration project between Roscosmos and ESA for the ExoMars mission is on hold due to political disputes, reflecting the complexity of international relations in the current context. Russia, with its isolationist political behavior, may find itself once again on the margins of international space exploration, losing the opportunity to actively participate in the race to Mars. In conclusion, the secret history of the Soviet Union's Mars 3 mission represents an intricate intertwining of scientific successes, political ambitions, and secrets kept for decades. This fascinating chapter in the history of space exploration gives us a unique perspective on the rivalry between the United States and the Soviet Union during the Cold War, and the complexity of political decisions related to space efforts. As we look to the future, with new missions and advanced technologies, we must face political challenges that can hinder international collaboration and limit progress in Mars exploration. The hope is that human curiosity and the thirst for knowledge will prevail over geopolitical tensions, allowing humanity to continue to explore and discover the mysteries of our solar system and beyond.